It's fine. Go ahead. Hello and welcome to Daily Politics, reaching you from Trust TV here in Abuja. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. I am Suleiman Suleiman. The leader of the Konkosia movement and former governor of Kano State, Rabiu Musa Konkoso, along with his political allies and proponents of a viable political alternative, have yesterday battered a new political movement, which they have called the National Movement, TNM. Konkoso and friends say both the ruling APC and opposition PDP have failed Nigerians, and they claim that their mission is to rescue Nigeria from its current doldrums. The group blamed corruption for Nigeria's challenges and promised to offer Nigerians a Marshall Plan, quote and unquote, to tackle corruption and rescue the country from its socio-economic challenges. In his speech, Konkoso said that no aspect of our national development will progress without finding a final solution to the issue of corruption, nepotism, and lack of national spread in the allocation of resources and representation at all levels of government. That's a mouthful, isn't it? But the idea of a third force or a third alternative to APC and PDP has been floating around in this country for quite a long time. In 2019, it was, for a while, quite strong, as internal wranglings remain in both parties, the PDP and APC. So tonight, on this program, we're asking, what is the national movement all about? What can it do differently from APC and PDP? And how can they succeed? Would they be launching a new political party? And how can they change the political chess game in the country as we move towards 2023? I have with me two members of the group who attended the launch of the movement yesterday. Professor Rufai Ahmad Al-Ghali is a political scientist, a former presidential advisor on political affairs, and National Publicity Secretary of the PDP. Also with me is Dr. Farouk Bibi. Farouk is a former national youth leader of the PDP and one-time Commissioner of Lands in Kano State. He is presently a lecturer on political economy and development studies at the University of Abuja. Welcome to Daily Politics, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. But before we jump right into it, we'll take a moment break, and then when we come back, we'll be discussing all of these issues and more. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, and we're discussing the possibility, the third force. Are they coming to rescue Nigeria, or are they just going to be more of the same? So, Prof, I think I can start with you as I usually do. I start from right, and then I end with, happily, both of you have been on the program before, so you're familiar with that procedure. So, the third force, the national movement, is the latest idea of a third force political movement in the country. What is this particular one all about? What is it about?
Well, thank you very much. First and foremost, let me congratulate the Trust Media group.
Thank you.
For transforming very fast, within a very short while, to even include a TV station. I was here about 3-4 months ago, and what I'm seeing here today is very, very impressive.
Thank you.
So more grace to our elbows.
Thank you.
Now to the point. Sir, today Nigeria is at crossroads. Nigerians love democracy. We believe in democracy. We believe in the ideas of democracy. Nigerians are struggling for development. Nigeria want to join the rest of the world, not to be compared with the lower ones, but with those countries that have advanced. Nigerians are angry with themselves, are angry with the system. They just feel that we are not supposed to be where we are today. We are supposed to be miles and miles ahead. And that's why when democracy came into this country in 1999, today 22 years, we thought that we have gotten the right thing on the way to achieving those objectives. But things are not working. As of now, there's a lot of despondency. There is a lot of anger. There's a lot of bitterness. There's a lot of resentment. And sometimes people are even fighting each other without knowing the reason for the fight among themselves. Things that we don't know in this country are happening. Crises in every zone of the country. In the past, we used to see them on television, or we hear them either in Afghanistan or Somalia and other places, and they have crept into this country. As of last year, when this concept of coming together started, people were confused. We were hearing that small groups are emerging from nowhere saying that they want to have a country of their own. And they were taking arms, fighting the police, fighting the military, fighting the SSS, fighting civilians, destroying property. You know, these were just scattered. And that we felt that was it good for us to sit down in our various homes to complain bitterly, anger, that things are not working, to be accusing people or accusing others close to us or far, that this country is just going down the drain in our own very eyes? Is it what we are supposed to do? So it was again this background. Just before the summer of 2021, Kwankwaso, in his own wisdom, started mobilizing some of his friends and associates. Let's sit down and talk. And this group that he invited was not just from one part of the country or one political party. All of us should come together. Let's talk to ourselves. Is it the country we are talking about? Is it the Nigeria we know? Is it the country, Nigeria, that people are proud of? We are proud of, that we can even attract other people from the rest of the world to come and invest and do business and socialize? Is it the country? So we felt that there's need for us to ask ourselves the basic truth, to interrogate the situation. And gradually, you won't believe it, within a short period of time, more people join, more people join, more people join. And it did not take long before finally that group of friends and associates transformed into a national movement. And we felt that we must do something, and urgently too. Of course, we have political parties on the ground. Some of them have been there for years. But they themselves, in their own sober moments, they know that this country is not the one they're expecting to run. The parties themselves, they are not running the parties as they are supposed to run political parties.
Thank you. So, thank you. Now, one of the major things that the national movement repeatedly, members who spoke in that event yesterday, repeatedly kept saying was that the PDP and the APC, they didn't make any distinction between the two, that both of them have failed Nigerians. But Nigerians would say that, well, all the members, from Kwankwaso to leaders of the member like yourself and many others who were at that movement yesterday also belong to either PDP or APC, and at some point even both. So how is that likely to make any difference now? How is the TNM likely to make a difference now?
Thank you very much. You're right that there are members of both parties and other parties and even non-political actors within the national
TNM.
movement, the TNM. And it's not deliberate. That's how movements come about.
Okay.
The idea that has brought this group together, or these people together, like Prof has explained, was the concern for the country, the dangers ahead, and the realization that something has to be done. That is common, that is collective, that is what you find in every sitting room in this country, in every boardroom in this country, in every motor park in this country, in every conversation in this country. There is evidence of failure, which was clear from the time of the PDP. We start to see some rot. And even as at that time, a lot of PDP members had taken up against what they were seeing as failure of governance. Some of them even left to come together with what formed the APC in a hope that there was going to be change in what was happening. But unfortunately, it so happened that the APC seems to be competing with the failures of the PDP to exceed the failures that were seen in the PDP. And this took us to a much deeper state of misery, and the anxiety began to grow again. Are we allowing this to continue in our country? We all have a stake. And I think that was what motivated persons of like minds to start thinking of an alternative position, at least, and move this country on the basis of ideologies that could develop this country, not what the PDP really came with. The PDP was concerned more with removing the military and enshrining a democratic process. To that extent, it has succeeded with that ideology, but then democracy is a means to an end. Without development, why bother about democracy? The APC on its own came with an ambition and a mission to just remove the PDP out of power. And when they got into power, you all know it, we all know it, for 1 year, they didn't have a direction because they didn't know what to do about developing Nigeria. The concern was all about removing PDP. That was the major ideology around. And so we have spent 7 years going to 8 years without really seeing development in the 20 years of democratic investment in Nigeria. That is a case for concern. And that concern should start coming from participant actors, people who have seen where the problem started, where the wrongs were made, where the where the wrong junctions were taken, wrong turns were made, and be able to begin to address and redress the situation. And so it's not accidental. I think it's natural.
Thank you. So, Prof, it's quite interesting because we have had evolutions and counter-evolutions of political movements and political parties in the country since, say, 1998 to date, not to talk of the ones even before. But this particular movement now, particularly, the idea that this is the third time, even between 2019 to date, this is the third time we're hearing of a third alternative, a major alternative to the PDP and APC. We heard about the rescue committee. We heard about the third force in which people like Professor Jega and Co were involved, others like Professor Patu Otomi and so on. But when election comes proper, even in 2019, Obasanjo started at an hour. During elections proper, they tend to just fizzle out. What is the guarantee that this is going to be different? What confidence can Nigerians have that this one will be different from the previous alternative movements?
Thank you very much. You see, first, let's understand that this notion that those who are part of the national movement today, they are also part of PDP or APC or other political parties. After all, Nigerians are Nigerians. We are not going to bring Indians or Ugandans or people from Fiji or from London to come and do this job for us. We have to do it ourselves.
Certainly.
Secondly, even while we are in the various political parties, does not mean that we are clones. Everybody has his own ideology, even mind set and tendencies. Therefore, sometimes most of these political parties, more are grouping of some tendencies. Some of them work together, some of them, just manage each other. For example, the APC, is an amalgam of various tendencies that came together to form the party. And up to now, those tendencies are there, in centrifugal forces.
Yes.
Yeah? Well, maybe the PDP was able to, somehow, paper over the various differences because the groups were able to march early enough before the PDP emerged in 1999, finally. So there is no the notion that if you have been part of PDP, you cannot be different. If you are part of APC, you cannot be different. That's not correct. And that's why, for the purpose of this forming of the national movement, everybody was invited.
Okay.
Everybody who matters, who is, first and foremost, we want to be sure that are you patriotic enough to understand the nature of the crisis we are facing in this country? are you there for elections, or are you there to help to salvage the country? Because people are talking about elections. You are talking about elections. We are even not talking about, as of last year, we're not talking about elections. We are talking about how to bring back peace and unity in this country. How to, all the bridges that have been broken between our people and communities. We want to make sure that we have brought our people together. What worries most of us was that there are people who are even elected either as governors or senators, and when they speak, they don't speak the language of unifying our people. They were dividing the country, raising tension with the authority of their offices. So with that kind of thing, what do you expect other people who are following them from the back? What will they do? People who are taking arms, local militia were emerging from everywhere. People are creating flags, national anthems, even designing currencies. They want to move out of the country. Is it the kind of thing you want people like us to sit down and watch? It's not about election at that time, because there must be peace in this country. There must be stability. Otherwise, election will have no purpose. So those people who have their minds are on election, yes, they will only look at it from that perspective. But our own is first, there must be a country. There must be peace. There must be stability. People, like most of us, are people around there as IDPs. Instead of, these are the kind of things we hear many years ago from other countries. Now there are realities in this country. So it's not a question of power or getting power and using power to an advantage. No, the first and most important point is that we must bring ourselves together, and that is the issue. Now, when we approach elections, then the national movement also will be working, is not sleeping. We never slept, we will never sleep. Therefore, we'll work together and see what we can do, what can we offer differently. And surely, the kind of people that are forming this national movement, they are not people you can take for granted. We are very serious about the future of our country, and we are very sure that we are going to salvage this country.
Thank you. So I think I will take it right from your last statement, because Nigerians are used to promises, sometimes by people with, the highest level of integrity levels. For example, in 2015, there were few Nigerians that could say something and be believed or trusted more than President Muhammadu Buhari, right? And many other people within his party, the APC, that we are promising this, we are promising that, we will do this, we will do that. So, and now we are having a new cycle of movements promising or making new sets of promises about bringing a country back together. And it was interesting you said that the APC is even competing to outdo the failures of the PDP. So what's the guarantee? What exactly would the TNM, the national movement, what exactly will it do differently in concrete terms?
Well, it is already different, because our experiences are that of a set of people who have seen failure and are concerned about that failure and want to redress that situation. That was not what started PDP, the failure of development, going to war. We had relative peace when PDP was formed. We had relative peace amongst our people. There was good neighborliness, there was sufficient nationalism and nationality consciousness within us when APC came in. But unfortunately, we have seen things deteriorate to the point where we are afraid that this country was going into the abyss, and something has to be done. And we are so concerned from the political field. But I will even take you up. Recently, even some media people, along with politicians and businessmen and diplomats and so on, got together and went and met the president, explaining to him the problems of the countries and the need.
You're talking about the 2022 committee.
Yes. And he gleefully sat down there, not realizing that they were telling him, "Sir, you are the problem, because you didn't solve the problems." Well,
He promised to support them.
But what they are saying is a failure of leadership. You can't come to a leader and say, "Sir, you have failed," and he smiles and says, "Okay, I will support you." There is a problem somewhere, definitely. So those of us from the real political side believe that we have to take political actions on a democratic platform provided by the Constitution to peacefully effect the changes required to put this country back online. Because we believe even those that are on the seat of power have accepted that we have derailed.
Interesting.
Yes. So this is why our movement now is quite different from the formation stages of PDP and the formation stages of APC. Certainly, political parties, almost all of them start from movements. Sometimes amalgamation of movements, sometimes a single movement. But at the same time, even during politicking, movements like Prof said, come into existence because there are still differences. If I recall, in the US, the Whigs had a part of the Republican Party at the time, Real Democrats. Recently, we had Tea Party Republicans and so on. So it is common when there are problems. But in this case, the problem is significantly disturbing. It's not about a political, an economic policy or a migration issue or issues of race. And it is about the survival of this country, which we find is really at stake. And we think it is not possible for us to just fold our hands and see the country get destroyed and we just sit down and complain in our sitting rooms. Or we are not among the people that have houses or visas to run out of this country. This is the only place we know, this is the only place we have, and this is the place we must stay and salvage.
Thank you, sir. So but it's interesting that Dr. Farouk was mentioning movement and political party in the same sentence, in the same breath. So but what can we expect from the TNM? Is it going to be a movement that will stand outside of the political spectrum and then like a pressure group, pressurizing the APC and the PDP to do the writing? Or is it going to be, are you going to apply with the INEC to register a political party? Or what's the grand strategic of influencing the political system?
Well, before I answer that question, let's go back a little further to build on what Farouk has said. Look,
Yes.
why are people fighting this country? Why are people taking arms? Why are people causing clusters of war warriors? It's because of justice. Wherever you alienate a people and you suppress them and you oppress them, directly or indirectly, and they have no way of venting those anger, the next thing is they will take arms. And it's regrettable in costing the country. Our highly professional army, the security agents, the police, are overstayed. This is something they can do. Everybody knows Nigerians have demonstrated capacity to manage crises in other countries of the world. What more of our own? They can, they will, they can. So, but the fact that this is coming all over the place shows that there is something that is wrong. And the crisis of injustice, exclusion, and alienation, like I said, is the one that is exacerbating this crisis. Therefore, like I said, we are not sleeping, we are planning, we are organizing, we are reaching out. And that's also why when we are forming this national movement, we do not say only PDP people come or APPC come, APC or other political. No, everybody was welcome. And we are talking openly among ourselves. We said, hold on to your party if you like. But come to this national movement because whatever happens is not the party that matters now, it's the future of the country. Okay. And therefore, since we have now reached a point of launching the movement, and frankly speaking, the kind of response we received since yesterday today is unprecedented. It is even beyond our imaginations. So the next thing is to continue planning. But I believe Suleiman will not ask us to put everything on the table face up to tell you our next strategy.
Yes, that's
we
all right.
We cannot do that for you.
That's all right.
Even in free consultancy, we cannot do for you.
That's all right.
But we are looking for the best for the country. There are people who, in that national movement who are, some of them are in the sidelines, but very strong. Former governors, former ministers, some serving senators, House of Representatives, ambassadors, academics. We are also telling our academics not to keep quiet, not to sit down and sit down analyzing phenomena. No, you must be ready to change it. And that's what you're saying about. Therefore, the time is now is to look at the Nigerian environment, look at the political environment, look at the situation in totality, and then from there we plan. And fortunately, with all sense of responsibility, the person who convened this movement himself has an antecedent. He is a fearless and courageous person. He has been able to do something somewhere in Kano while he had the opportunity, or while he was the Minister of Defense, or while he was a senator. So we are not following him simply because he is Kwankwaso, but because of his antecedent. But we feel that this is a person who is a nationalist by excellence. He can walk anywhere. Wherever trouble comes into this country, he is one of the few people who will leave his house and go there and intervene. So it is with this mindset we say, okay, if he can invite us to come and sit down and look at Nigeria and then plan for the Nigeria of the future, we should do everything. It's not a personal matter again. Because most people see it like it's a Kwankwaso affair. We tell them no. Yes, he is the convener, but everybody has a role to play and everybody has a future into this movement. It is Nigerian project. It's the future.
So we're
of
not expecting the movement to transform into a political party anytime soon?
Whatever we are going to do, I'm sure when the time comes, you will hear it. You'll be among the first to hear. But we definitely, when you're telling you that, we are looking at all the various options. All the various options. But people are not happy with what is happening. Suleiman, I'm sure you are not happy with what is happening in the situation today in this country.
I'm sure Nigerians are not interested in my view.
Yeah? So what I'm saying
as a journalist, yes.
No, they will, because you are also the megaphone. You are the one, the intermediate between the political system and the mass of the people. And therefore, that's why we are, and the most important point also that we are saying here is that the future of this country also the youth must be directly involved. The youth. Because if you look at the groups that are now taking arms, it's usually the youth. Whether they are IPOP, it's the youth. Whether it's Boko Haram, it's the youth. Whether it's the bandits are fighting over cattle rustling, it's the youth. Wherever you go, it is the youth that are now feeling that they are alienated from the system. Most of them now, unfortunately, now we have educated ones. If you find those people that are mentioning, they are ignorant, they are illiterate, the ones that are now, from the spirit of the NSAS, these are people who are educated, who are just conscious of their rights and this thing. So if we allow this kind of things to happen, then the other group that we also feel that we must carry along is the women, the other half of our life. Because women, again, are also seen more or less as appendages, as supplementary elements in the political process. Or more or less, we patronize them. We just give them a small percentage. Go and take this one. It is not like that. Women are central to the development of this country. And if you develop only the men's side, you only develop one half of the side of the society. The second half, what do you do with it? So therefore, the men, the women, even the disabled people, although we don't want to call it disabled, but people who are physically challenged. Of course, somebody said that when I'm poor, I'm also physically challenged. We'll also be involved. Everybody is going to be involved in this process. The idea is that it's not a question of we are fighting for power, fighting for positions of authority, so that we can also show we can. No. Nobody knows it all. This is a time for everybody to rise up. That's why you notice that for the past 7 years, Al-Kali has not been talking. Because the time to talk has not come. And we had to talk as a group now, so that we can work together. There are many countries of the world that take us very seriously. They are waiting for us. When shall we rise again? We are now in limbo. Not that government is not doing very much. They are doing. But whatever they're doing, still is not matching with the expectation of the people.
That's all. But I was going to, just before we go on break, I was going to ask that, because by all the things that the Prof has said, quite interesting, and I'm sure Nigerians would take note. But with you have this situation where, in the formation of the APC at least, you had, the APC was a party on the sidelines of power, entirely out of power. You had a few state governors from ACN and so on. But it was only when you had a breakaway from the PDP, the NPDP, that moved into the PDP, that it became strengthened, and they were able to take power at the center in 2015. If you don't have something like that in the APC, first of all, are you expecting something like that now? Are there people who share your views that are within the ruling party or even within the major opposition party right now? And if you don't have something like that, how are you going to transform all of these ideas into concrete issues in governance?
I hope you're not saying that you have to belong to APC or government before you take things serious.
Okay.
But the truth of the matter is, even at the highest level of governance, people are concerned. Every patriotic Nigerian is concerned. I just gave you an example of some of the most important Nigerians coming together, indirectly telling us that, look, when elite begin to behave that way, you know that it's a big problem. When they begin to discard their pecuniary interest and the little businesses they make and profits they make and begin to say, hey, this whole structure needs some adjustment, then you know it's a big problem because they are about the most selfish set of people. If things are going on, they take the most.
Yes.
When there is problem, enlightened self-interest comes into play, and when they raise an alarm, take it serious. Nigeria is not in a position, like Prof has said, the world is looking at us and laughing at us. We are one of the laughing stocks of the world with so much endowment, resources, the best crude in the world, and we cannot even refine and feed ourselves with it. We give it away and buy at prices that are higher than what we
Thank you.
thank
you. In order to go a break, or maybe I will have to cut you short, but when we return, we'll be continuing straight from that in terms of concrete agendas that you have, since you talk about refining crude and so on, what that would be the concrete agendas that you hope to push and sell to Nigerians in ways that make you different from the existing major parties already. But that will be when we return after a moment's break. Thank you for staying with us, and don't go away. Welcome back. This is Daily Politics and on Trust TV. If you're just joining us, you can follow the discussion on all our social media platforms, on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And of course, we're discussing the national movement launched yesterday by former governor of Kano State, Engineer Rabi Musa Kwankwaso and his friends. And have with me the pro-tem national secretary of the national movement, Professor Ahmad Rufai Al-Ali, and also a member of that movement, Dr. Farouk Bibi Farouk. You're most welcome once again. So Prof, as we told off the discussion earlier, that in terms of concrete agendas, in Nigerian politics in general, policy has always been lacking. You always have a lot of political talk, political rhetoric, that will rouse people, that will get people to clap, that will get people to easily buy into. But when it comes to actual policies, for example, the example that Dr. Farouk gave earlier, how do we move from a crude exporting country into a country that actually exports petroleum products rather than imports them, or how do you to move from this disabled people or youths that you mentioned earlier. So what are the precise or specific or even broad policy agendas that the national movement has that will be different from what the PDP and APC have offered so far?
Well, I know this is an interview. It's not a lecture or debate or seminar on political science. But for most of us, we are worried. We are worried because what is happening in this country, not under APC or under PDP, what has been happening over the years, we don't know from wherever. But one would say that there is that deliberate, whether it's internally generated or externally generated, there is a feeling that there is conscious or deliberate effort to destroy the country. That is number one. Why do I say that? If you see all the various sectors of the economy that hold this country together, they are being destroyed one by one. Take agriculture. With the crisis in Borno and North Central and Northwest, and now Northeast, who among our farmers can go to farm and produce goods and services? The livestock business that we take for granted, today Nigeria does not import very much, significantly, livestock products. But with the massive destruction going on in the livestock industry now, it will not be long before Nigeria will have to import virtually everything. What about trade? The market that our people depend on, local and national and international market. With the kind of thing you hear, that you cannot travel from Abuja to Kaduna, virtually the largest artery in the northern Nigeria. And this has been going on for almost 10 years now. There must be something wrong with that. Then you see somebody going to the southeast and say that people stay at home. Typical Southeasterner is a businessman. And then you tell him to stay at home for political gain. If he stay at home for how long? Who will pay the cost of these losses? That
every Monday.
Now, then look at international travel. Apart from all the restrictions, only recently learned that the airlines have doubled their airfare. For nowhere, and government is there watching them, doubling at this time, for no reason. Just as we are trying to get its exit from the coronavirus, the economy has not picked up. You just increase almost twice this price of. This is part of the destruction of the economy, as it were. Now, if you look at the oil sector, the story is long. I cannot exhaust it, but there are two forces, and these forces, each one of them is very strong in this country. There is a force that wants importation to be stopped. Government should provide money for the refineries. But the history is that whenever government provide money for the refineries, instead of them to use the money for the refineries, they will chop the money and they could clear their mouth as if nothing happened. And that's why, despite the fact that the current president was a former minister of petroleum, or former military leader of this country, he was
he started the NMPC.
Everything he is supposed to. He was also a governor in North, and he's a president, and now he's the minister of it. But this issue, whenever he touches it, some people who oppose this issue of, this nationalistic view of saving ourselves from depending on oil. The importers of oil will never like anybody to stop this importation of oil because they are major beneficiaries. That's why all this crisis and politics of this issue of whether it's subsidy or no subsidy. Subsidy for who? Subsidy for what? Because there are people who are major beneficiaries. They are very powerful. So the government is between these powerful forces. When you want to revive the domestic capacity for refining petroleum, those people who are importers will never support it. When you want to support importers, an internal element will not. That's why unless government has to use a strong hand, and I believe the national movement will come up with solution to this kind of issues. Because after 7 years, the opportunity has been provided for this issue to be addressed. And now we are now talking about, only about last year, was it about 2 billion naira was it $1 billion was something allocated for refineries in Port Harcourt. What has happened to that? Because it is very difficult for our people to have the discipline, to understand the mindset of the government and pursue it. That's why sometimes people say they pity the president. He may have the good ideas, but by the time you're talking about policy, the policy may be there, but at the level of implementation, everything is sabotaged. And that's still the blame go back to him. But if you have a leader and group of leaders that are ready to look at everybody in the face and say, enough is enough, it will be done. The security issue that we're talking about, I rarely talk about security in this country because it's not my purview. But I know there are people who know this country very well. I know people who are dedicated, who have put their lives for this to defend this country. We cannot say our army don't know what they are doing, or their security service don't know what they are doing. They know what they are doing. But somebody somewhere is also working against the system. And it has been now affecting the country. So gradually, our country will grind to a halt. And we become importers and importers of everything. And then what kind of democracy that instead of it to help this country to assert itself in the international system, we become a pawn in the international system. So I think we have a big journey. That's why our people in the national movement are saying that no, we have to sit down and look at this differently. Partisanship aside, that's why I emphasize that in this group that we form, we are not partisan. We are politicians, but we are not partisans. We are not interested whether you are this party or not. Come with your ideas. It is your ideas that will matter in this group.
Okay.
And then, of course, your commitment to this country and to liberating the country. If you come with just your petty agenda, you want to get a position and then also use your position to your advantage, I think you're not going to go far in this group.
Thank you.
So,
thank you very much. But that's precisely the accusations that many Nigerians have leveled against the national movement, particularly on Twitter. I was following some of the discussions earlier, both yesterday and today as well. People were saying that most of the members are people who have been driven out or edged out of the two major parties. People who either in the PDP or in the APC, they've been pushed out of positions within either of these two parties. And that's why they are now coming together to form. It's not that they have, the objective is not altruistic, it's not pan-Nigerian, that it's to promote personal interests, just like the ones in PDP and APC.
Nigeria is a very interesting place.
Yes, sir.
Those with the highest stake in Nigeria, the young people, people who have businesses, people who move out every day to work and earning a life, are the first people who become reluctant to seeing progress in the country. When they see it, the first approach is to criticize it and refuse to accept it. But when they see success, they also come along with it. I do not take the views of the social media very seriously. Okay. I prefer to take the views of those who have voted. And about 90% of social media critics and writers never vote.
Okay.
They don't vote. In fact, if you're a practical politician, you'd come to realize that just about 25, not up to 30% of registered voters who even dare to register actually have voted from 1999 to date. There is so much apathy that you would know that taking decisions politically has a whole of field awaiting for political actors to bring in people into that decision-making process. Of course, we like to look at politics as just a game, a boxing game where you put PDP on the ring, APC on the ring, and they box themselves, and you entertain yourself, and you go home, pretending that whatever happened in that ring determines the price of bread you buy tomorrow, the price of beans in the market, how much palm oil is, the price of petrol you put in your car. People tend to take politics away from what it really is in Nigeria. But it is coming. It is coming. We are realizing the importance of having the right people in position. We are realizing the importance of having leaders that take the right decision, leaders that stand by us. Right now we don't have that. We don't see that. Even when we had expectations, 2015.
So what guarantee do we have that the people in the TNM now are these kinds of people that you are describing, this kind of
because
leaders?
Because they are product of a concern.
Okay.
Like I said before, we have seen the problems. We are concerned. This country is disintegrating in our hands. And we believe that those who are pretending to be neutral are actually not neutral. They are also concerned. And they can criticize. But what we advise is come and join, bring your ideas. Right now there will be some, before whatever happens to this movement, there will be a lot of ideological discussions among the members of this group. There will be a lot of attempt to find a direction for this country acceptable to everybody. So instead of sitting down in your homes and being critics, join the movement and participate in debating. Come and tell us that we cannot do it, and this is the way to do it. And if you are the best person to do it, you have earned a place in the movement. But to take it as a game where you think everything that is happening is just for certain interest, personal interest, and then you are not an active member. I mean, you are not doing well for yourself, for the future of this country, for the generations that are coming. Ideas will come about education, about economy, about that will be debated in this group, and concrete positions will be taken. And if there is an opportunity to take power, which is our ultimate objective, we would be measured by those decisions that we have taken, those ideologies that were taken. No political party in Nigeria now is measured by its performance in the economy or in security and everything. They mouth it, but they do not have a process because they never debated it. There is no development agenda that is owned by any political party in this country. We are trying to do that now. We want the political class to debate a development agenda, put it in place. If it is education, what do we do? How do we do it? If it is economy, how do we do it? What do we do? Because what we have done before has not really taken us out of the woods. And I think it is high time we do the right thing. And everybody is invited to come and join and participate in this debate. Criticize us with us. Don't sit down on Twitter and say you don't believe in this thing. Come to the TMN movement. If it was yesterday, come and pick the microphone and tell us you don't believe in it for 1, 2, 3 reasons. You are teaching us, you are telling us where the concerns are, and we will participate with you in finding solutions to this country. That is the whole essence.
Thank you. Interesting. So but there are two, just before because we're about closing now, but enough time for one questions. There's a question that has been lingering, but I was saving it for just about last.
Yes.
Who is funding the national movement?
Okay, before I answer that question, I want to also add up to what you have said and then what I also said earlier, the issue of the destruction of the Nigerian economy and society. I forgot to stress the issue of education.
Okay.
Again, if you notice what has been happening over the past 10 years, or 11 years now, starting from what Boko Haram did and what happened in the southwest and the north central, and now also even in the southeast.
And the increasing number of schools that have to close
down. Even the southeast now, the idea that people should not go on Mondays or on Tuesdays also has affected schools when their regular calendar of school activity. I think nobody plays with his own education in this country or any country of the world and succeed. Nobody plays with the economy. So what we are saying is that all these fundamentals, they are just not correct. They are not right. Now, I know the issue of funding. Funding is, you assume that, again, like we are not moving away from where we have been trying to avoid.
Okay.
One of the critical problems of the Nigerian political process is that people assume that some people have to buy the political process, therefore become the major beneficiaries, and therefore they are the one now to dish out whatever favors to other people. When we started this movement, let me tell you, it is a group that came on its own, with not the issue of money has not even come as an issue to us for now. It will come at the appropriate time. In fact,
but you had a launch. That must have cost money,
yes,
even little organizational money, structural money. So where did that come from?
Yes. What is happening is it comes from our hearts.
Okay.
It comes from our hearts. It comes from our commitment. Because there are people who cannot even sit down and talk. We are talking about sitting down, talking and getting a lunch or breakfast. Some cannot even sit down that we are talking about. So for us, money did not come as an issue for now, because first we have to understand the problems. We have to understand the issues. And that, in fact, at the initial stage, we did not even allow everybody to come anyhow in that meetings. Not because we are afraid of people to come and take information, no. But we want to look at the quality of the people who will come. If you know that when you come, you are going to waste our time, we'll tell you gently, please, take your time. When the group is strong enough, anybody can join. But at the initial stage, we are mindful of the quality of the people, their antecedents, and their commitment to the future of the country.
Thank you.
Therefore, the most important point is that once you talk about funding of any organization, then now you are beginning to bring the issue of who controls the party or organization, who owns it.
And actually, that's the last question. Okay. The question I was going.
So let me land on that.
Yes, please.
So the national movement is owned by members of the national movement.
Okay.
Therefore, nobody will come tomorrow and say he's a godfather, or godmother, or god sister, or god brother. It is our own commitment to make a difference in this country. And if we do not migrate from that particular perspective, that agenda, that paradigm, then we will not make a difference.
Interesting.
So we are deeply committed that this country must be run differently. And the starting point is, even from the laying the foundation of the national movement, must be differently done.
Thank you. So it's interesting, Professor Alkali said that the funding comes from their hearts, which is an interesting concept, which everywhere in the world is how democracies are run. People pay for good governance, to have the right kind of leadership. But in our context or anywhere, the funding also comes from somebody else's pockets, So there's the idea that maybe one of the possible presidential candidates in either the PDP or the APC is preparing the ground that they will come to take over in case they lose out of the ticket in any of these two. To how much credence can Nigerians give to that for the national movement? For example, to practicalize this, if you have Tinubu and Osinbajo as candidates, one of them in the APC must lose. So maybe is the TNM fallback?
Stop you there.
All right, go ahead. Is the TNM
as small as I am in politics?
Okay.
Suleiman, do I look like somebody's spare tire?
Interesting.
Or does Prof look like somebody's spare tire? Or the other members? We think beyond them. We think beyond what is happening in PDP, what is happening in APC. They don't have ideas. Their performance is beneath our expectation. You understand? We are agitated because they are trying to destroy the whole system because of their inabilities. How could we now sit behind? I mean, I as small as I am, have had invitation from more than 4 political groups. In my little career, I was a director in 3 campaign organizations, apart from what I did in the party. Presidential candidates, more than 3 have sent emissaries to me, and I said no. Because that way we are going is not the correct way. If you come with an ideology, now this movement will have baptism of ideas. And from those ideas, we find a direction. If you are here and you agree with those ideas that I agree with, I've always said I can serve in any manner for anybody as far as it's for the benefit of this country. Who are you? What do you have that we would sit down and wait for you to go and fail and then come and use me or use Prof or use somebody? I acknowledge your question, but
yes.
I think it is way off this thing.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming on the show, Professor Rufai Ahmed Alkali. Thank you also, Dr. Bibi Farouk. It's nice having this conversation with you.
Also inviting you to join the TNM.
The TNM.
I'm a journalist. I don't have...
No, you are key people in society. You have a lot of ideas.
Thank you.
You should come like others to participate.
It's all right. Thank you. So hope we'll be having you once again as we move towards Nigeria, because our goal is to make Nigerians and particularly our viewers to understand the real issues in Nigerian politics, particularly the policies. There is nothing better than an informed voter in a democracy, and that remains our goal, to make our voters the most informed in Nigeria. We hope this is where we draw the curtain. I am Suleiman, and we hope to have you with us tomorrow when we bring you just another edition of Daily Politics. Good night.